On today's episode, I'm going to review the season finale of the Book of Boba Fett, going through the highs and the lows, and maybe the good, bad, and the ugly. I'm going to talk about where things are maybe being set up going forward with the upcoming Star Wars shows, and maybe some of my thoughts about Star Wars in general and where it's at right now. Let's get into it.
Welcome to the Way of the Dad podcast, where we fearlessly dive into the depths of dadness. If you like what you are hearing, please share the podcast and give it a review on the platform where you listen. Thank you.
Hey there, welcome back to the Way of the Dad podcast. So just real quick before I get into it, really hope and would appreciate any likes, shares, subscribes. The podcast has been growing some. That's very encouraging. And appreciate everybody who comes back to listen. And if you can do anything, usually what I'm asking for is just clicks. Like, share, subscribe, all that. But also, if you can leave any reviews on wherever podcast source you're listening to, whether it's through a typical podcasting app like Google Podcasts or Apple or Spotify, but also YouTube, Rumble, and the Facebook page. If you could leave any reviews, that'd be great, and I'd very much appreciate it. But I am encouraged about the growth, and I'm still kind of tweaking the formula here as far as setup, structure of the shows, things like that. So anyway, let's get into this. So we finally watched the season finale of the Book of Boba Fett. And I'll refer you to my previous episode where I kind of broke down episodes 1 through 6. Talked about how it almost felt like it was an entirely different production team that took over after episode 4. And the last episode, I don't know what's going on with it. Because episodes 5 and 6 were so much higher quality. The writing was tighter. Everything was better. Now, not necessarily because it did not have Boba Fett in it, but it was a very stark contrast to what we had been seeing. So, it was very interesting to see how episode 7, at least in part, reverted back to that campy, cheesy, almost CW quality. And I'm saying CW at its worst, or cheesiest. There have been some of the earlier seasons of The Flash and Arrow that were really good, but there's always a little cheesiness to it, it's not super gritty. It's not super realistic. It's not super dark. And there's some writing contrivances and kind of cheap dialogue that's kind of just almost feels canned, Oh, this is what superheroes are supposed to say. Oh, this is what the superhero sidekick who doesn't have powers but supports in the background, this is what they say. Some of it feels kind of like standard, right? So it was back to being uneven. Not as bad as episodes 1 through 4, but not as good as episodes 5 and 6 as far as quality. When I was watching episode 7, one of the things that stuck out to me the entire episode, anytime those mod kids showed up on screen, it felt like the production quality went down. I don't know who these people are. The actual actors themselves. But they don't match. They don't fit. They feel very shoehorned. Their caliber of acting is nowhere near. And maybe it's the writing. It could be the writing. I'm not going to sit here and say that, they had the best writing there ever was, because they really, really didn't. But I just keep coming back to the fact that every time I see them, it feels off. something feels off with them. Their writing doesn't match. They keep trying to make them, like the Mean Girls thing. Quit trying to make the mods happen. The mods are not happening. Quit trying to make the mods happen. There's something just so jarringly off about them. The writing for them is so off. They feel very shoehorned. They don't feel natural to the show. They don't feel like they belong there. They feel like they've been inserted. I didn't hate the finale through and through, though. But there's a very uneven quality to the finale that it feels very hacked up. And there have been lots of reports. I listen, and I follow Valiant Renegade and Overlord DVD, Midnight's Edge. And these are the kind of people that have a lot of Hollywood contacts. Kind of the internal politics of who's really in charge, who's really doing this, who's really pushing this, or, things like that. And there have been rumors that basically Favreau and Filoni kind of ended up taking over this after I don't know, I want to say the dailies, but once it became obvious where this show was going and what kind of quality was being thrown out, they maybe took back over, tried to salvage the season. Basically, hey, look, this is mostly hot garbage. We need to fix this and at least get something out of this season. And there's something about the show that kind of matches that. There almost feels like the finale. I mean, there's some part of the quality of the finale. It's like, hey, let's just make sure some plot points happen. Let's wrap this puppy up and put this thing in the can so we can get on to what we really want to get on to. There's some rumors that mostly what we got in the first 4 episodes and maybe whatever was maybe potentially thrown away was a leftover of the Boba Fett solo Star Wars movie script. The solo movie was supposed to spawn off a whole slew of one-off, anthology movies, if you want to call it that, but just one-off stories in the Star Wars universe, but not related, or at least not directly following the Skywalker trilogy, and Boba Fett was going to be one of those. So it felt very rushed, slapped together like it had been hacked up and kind of created on the in the editing room. Like they took bits and pieces of what they had, hurried up and filmed some more stuff. There were reports that they were literally putting this episode together days before it aired or went live. There were some cool things. Boba Fett, and so this is where we're going to get into some spoilers. So if you don't like spoilers and you didn't hear me before, you might want to pop off, go check the episode out, and then come on back. But I'm getting into spoiler territory. I really enjoyed seeing Boba Fett ride the Rancor. That was pretty cool. That was, at least made it more worth my time to watch the episode. You know what I mean? Gave me at least something to watch, to enjoy. And the Scorpion-neck droids, I believe that's what they're called, those were really cool. Kind of like really, really big, badass versions of the old destroyer droids from episode 1. Another thing I really liked was the reunion of Grogu and Dinjarn. But it also felt very hacked into the show. And I don't say that I didn't like it, but the fact that Luke just had R2 take his X-Wing, take Grogu back, drop him off, that was a little weird, and it didn't feel quite natural, and it felt like it was done out of a necessity. Like, hey, there's a plot point we need to make happen, and this show isn't really where we want it to go. This isn't really working, but we just need to make this happen, and let's just get it going so that we can move forward with Ahsoka, Mandalorian Season 3, whatever other shows they've got cooked up. Maybe Bo-Katan's going to get her own show. Favreau and Filoni have a lot of plans for this post-Return of the Jedi universe that they're creating. And this show feels like, especially the finale, feels like there's a lot of things that were just thrown in because the show's kind of crap. It's kind of a lost cause. We need to just stop the bleeding. And while we're at it, let's get some things in there that we need to make happen anyway. And now we don't have to waste time in Mandalorian Season 3 with him going to, wherever Luke's at with Grogu. We can kind of just get all these things out of the way now. That way we can hit the ground running hardcore in Season 3 instead of wasting time getting people caught up to speed. There's a lot of that in the Book of Boba Fett. Kind of the writer/showrunner's way of making lemons, or, taking lemons and turning them into lemonade. But I did enjoy the Dinjarin and Grogu reunion. Although it was very shoehorned in and rushed, I did enjoy it very much. I still do wonder what this means going forward. Because a lot of people got very mad that Grogu didn't choose the lightsaber, which would mean that Grogu would then be Luke's first actual apprentice, which means that maybe they're going to eliminate or retcon or write out of existence the sequel trilogy, that terrible dumpster fire of a trilogy. And I say that from a writing standpoint. There was no plan. I didn't need it to be the most amazing Star Wars I've ever seen. It just needed to be coherent. And it needed to have a bunch of directors and producers who were all on the same page about where we're going to go. Beginning, middle, end. Done. Say what you want about the prequel trilogy, but that did that. So a lot of people were wondering what this means, and I'm wondering what this means. But at the same time, at no point have we actually ever been seen or told specifically, well, Grogu chose the chainmail instead of the lightsaber. It all apparently happens off screen. So I don't know that anything's as definitive as it maybe seems like it is. Grogu's obviously still using his force powers, and maybe he's gotten better, right? So it'll be interesting to see where Mandalorian Season 3 goes, and I wonder if they're trying to set him up as the next, I think it was Tar Vizsla, who's the Mandalorian Jedi who created the Darksaber. Maybe they're setting Grogu up to truly be a Mandalorian Jedi. I don't know. Kind of wrapping up the actual episode itself, some of the action in there felt very CW-ish. He's talking about his troops, and they're going around to all the locations on Mos Espa, and he's got like Gamorrean guards at the spaceport, and Black Chrysanthemum standing over in the Trandoshan area, and the mods over in some other spot, talking about like he's got some kind of army. And it just goes back to feeling very CW-ish, cheesy. Another problem is I'm really tired of seeing Boba Fett look like he has no idea what the hell he's doing. He looked he came across as so ineffective as a leader. He needed everybody else to tell him what to do. The mods had to be the one to tell him, no, we stay here in this burned out husk of a place because you're supposed to be a man of the people, so be a man of the people. Okay, fine. Why couldn't he have come up with that thought? He's supposed to be this leader, and he's supposed to be there doing it for the people of Tatooine and for the future of the planet and whatever. I still have no idea why. I keep going back to the fact that all of a sudden he's this man of the people of Tatooine. And they never wrote that into the script anywhere. Where all of a sudden he has this love of Tatooine. And he wants to save them from whatever. Could have put it in the script, but it never was there. But now all of a sudden he's this man of Tatooine who wants to take over Tatooine and run it with respect and save the people and all this other stuff. Whatever. But I'm tired of Boba Fett feeling neutered. And this is nothing against Fennec Shand or Ming-Na Wen's character. I like Fennec Shand. I think she's a good partner with Boba Fett. But the fact that he always needs her to tell him what to do. She's always got to be the one to tell him, hey, this isn't the time or the place or whatever. She's sitting here laying out the whole setup of, where everybody's going to be at, the players, the chessboard, so to speak, laying out the chessboard. And then he needs the mods, that goofy girl who, I'm sorry, it may be the writing, but her acting is not very good. And she has to be the one to tell him, no, we need to stay here to be of the people. And sure, there's going to be a lot of collateral damage and a lot of people are going to die, but, we got to be of the people or something. It just feels like very cheesy, contrived writing. Like it was not really well set out. And then after it's all said and done, and they're walking around, Boba and Fennec, they're walking around the town, and, all the people are grateful that they saved the Mos Espa from the Pikes and all this other stuff, and they defeated the Pikes. And And then he's saying, maybe I'm not cut out for this. What? Are you serious? Is that a way to acknowledge what we've all wondered? Like, no offense, Boba, but why are you even doing this? This doesn't feel like you. So, I don't know. And I know she says, Fennec says, if not us, then who? Okay. But I still don't know why. It still doesn't make any sense why he decided, you know what, I just survived an absolute death sentence, burned my way out of the gut of an absurdly terrible monster. You know what? I think I want to take over this place and run it right. That's the epiphany he had, I guess. At least that's what we're supposed to believe. This show just doesn't... There's not a good through line, and it feels like it had to be fixed in the 11th hour, or at least salvaged. And I shouldn't say fixed, because it wasn't fixed. It was salvaged. And I say salvaged, I don't know if the show Book of Boba Fett was salvaged, but the Mandoverse itself was salvaged. They took advantage of a crappy show and put in a lot of stuff that they needed to get done, and it was just helpful for them to get done and out of the way anyway. And it makes it so you actually have to watch it so you know where things are starting off from in Mandalorian Season 3. So, going forward, it's interesting. I'm assuming Mandalorian Season 3 is going to focus on Dinjarin and Grogu going to Mandalore into the living waters, or the living, whatever it is, the living waters underneath the mines, for him to be redeemed. But I still think that he is no longer a child of the Watch, or with the children of the Watch. I think he is going to evolve beyond that rigid, narrow view. I think this is maybe where he starts to learn that maybe it's time for him to pick up and lead. I do wonder if he's going to get training with the Darksaber, much in the way Sabine Wren did in Rebels from Kanan. I did enjoy seeing him use the Darksaber on the Scorpionic droids. He didn't seem like he was struggling with it quite as much, although they didn't really show him using it a lot. But it is interesting, and I do wonder what's going on with Grogu long term. Is he going to get more Jedi training? Are they going to go see Luke and talk? Are they going to meet up with Ahsoka? And maybe she sets them on a different path and does some to help Din with the Darksaber. I don't know. Boba Fett, I do wonder if going forward, now that Favreau and Filoni are in full control, because a lot of Book of Boba Fett was filmed when Favreau was not really in control of Star Wars, and now he pretty much is. Kathleen Kennedy is basically president of Lucasfilm in name only. She's getting a check, but everything that's coming out sounds like she absolutely has no power in Hollywood or in Lucasfilm at this point to direct anything. Kind of like a cushy paycheck in a nice corner office, and stay in here and stay out of everybody's way. Otherwise, you'll lose your money. But now that Favreau's in charge, it'll be interesting to see if they try to rehab Boba Fett. I would think that they're going to try to, at least somewhat. The Ahsoka show coming up, that'll be very interesting. Now that Ahsoka's going to finally get her own show. Supposedly rumored that they've already cast the actress that's going to play Sabine Wren in live action. My understanding is, I believe it's Lars Mikkelsen. I could be wrong. I believe it's Lars Mikkelsen has been cast. He was the actual voice actor in Rebels for Grand Admiral Thrawn. I guess they have named him Grand Admiral Thrawn. But he's going to be in the show, which is going to be interesting. And my understanding is they've also cast someone to play Ezra. So it's obvious that they're going to continue what they left off from in Rebels, in the Ahsoka show. I do wonder if the Mandalorian is going to cross paths with them, with Ahsoka in her show at some point. And then as far as everything else goes, it's hard to say. I've heard reports that Gina Carano may be back eventually, maybe Mandalorian Season 4, which would be great if they could get things back on track from what they had originally planned before that all went belly up. The Obi-Wan show, and that one kind of stands apart because it's not in the same timeline, or same time frame, I guess I should say, as the Mandalorian base shows. But I'm looking forward to it. I really hope it's not terrible. Please. they've got to stop dropping the ball on Star Wars. And I know this is not a Favreau or Filoni project. I just really, really hope that they get this right. Because Ewan McGregor might be one of the brightest spots of the entire prequel trilogy. Do not butcher this, please. So going forward, I do think the future is still somewhat bright with Star Wars, but this Book of Boba Fett show was definitely a very awkward step, and it's hard to tell whether it's leading down a dark path or towards a brighter future. I'm hoping for the brighter future, for sure. So anyway, that's going to wrap it up. I'll be talking more about this kind of stuff, but also, some of my other stuff going forward. And again, I just ask you to keep share, subscribe, all that stuff. Feels so trite and, kind of cliched to say that, but it is real when you do that, and it really does help the show, the podcast, and it helps me continue to keep going and getting bigger. I've got bigger plans, things I'd like to do. I'd love to do some live streams at some point. Maybe see if I can get someone on with me. That'd be great. But for right now, I'm content with just trying to continue to grow a little bit here and there. And if you share, subscribe, that's a big part of that. Leaving reviews also, same thing. And if you have something you'd like me to talk about or topic ideas, I'd be happy to do it. And of course, I'll, give you a name drop in the process, who gave me the idea to talk about something like this. But I'm not opposed to talking about things if someone has something in mind they'd like to hear about or like to at least hear my thoughts on. Again, thank you so much. And until next time, take care and have a great day.
Thanks for listening. The Way of the Dad podcast is produced and recorded by, me, a stunningly average husband and father, who appreciates all of the likes, shares, reviews, and support you give. If you would like to reach out, you can find the podcast on its Facebook page, and of course you can email me at wayofthedadpodcast@gmail.com. Come back next time as we continue to fearlessly dive into the depths of dadness.